Today, I'm speaking with Joel Block. I don't know where to start between his background as CPA, venture capitalist, real estate, board member of the National Speaker Association, entrepreneur. He's got so many different experiences, and we'll be focusing on what's coming for 2021. What are the big change that he sees? What are the trends? And also, where will the asset be going, who's going to own them in the future. Very interesting conversation, very thought-provoking. Enjoy listening to Joel Block. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meaning podcast. And today I'm delighted to speak with a rock star, not only in the real estate and financial world, but also in the speaking world. He's also a board member of NSA. He's a CPA. He started with PricewaterhouseCoopers, hedge fund, real estate, content, speaker, and so on and so forth. I'm sure there's two of them, but at least today I'm very happy to be speaking with Joel Block. Bonjour Joël, comment ça va?
Ça va bien, monsieur. How are you, Eric?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And today I'm very excited to be speaking with you so that my audience can benefit from all your knowledge. So that's really exciting.
Well, that's awesome. Although I've done tons and tons of these, I don't know that I've ever blurted out a few words in French. So you're my first. Thank you for thanks for taking me back a few years.
Of course. Maybe if you can give the people listening a little bit about your background, how you started, what you did, and then we can maybe speak about what you're doing today.
Well, I started in the CPA business. I was a terrible fit. I didn't like it at all. But the last account I worked on at Pricewaterhouse was this giant company that was raising money from investors. And I said, that's what I want to be. I want to be a deal maker like these guys. I don't want to be doing their tax work. I want to be the deal maker. So I quit the firm and I just started a little operation myself. I met another guy and we bought some, we tied up a little building. We cold called a bunch of doctors. We got them to give us some money. We bought our first building and then we bought another one and another one. And then I fell into a venture capital transaction where me and another guy invented the concept of delivering stock quotes to investors by fax. And because now I'd learned how to raise money from doing real estate deals, I was successful in raising $10 million to launch this company.
Wow.
And I traveled all over the country selling this stock quotes by fax service to the big newspapers. And ultimately, I ended up selling that company to a Fortune 500 company some years later for pretty good price. So it was good. I've been through the entrepreneurial cycle. And then after that, I just started buying and selling other companies and really just making things happen. So I've been down the path that entrepreneurs are trying to go, self-employed people where they're trying to go. And now I'm considered a business model expert. I help people to do structures and put things together. And, I buy things, I invest in things. I've been involved in maybe 40 different startup kinds of companies and we build structures. I just have fun. I write books and I speak and I share my experiences and help other companies be the best that they can be.
And you also now advising or at least sharing your thought about the economy and where we're going with some of your customers, right?
We advise our corporate clients on the future. I mean, I've always been someone who looks forward in time, and I've developed some very, very good techniques for looking forward in time. And especially at this crazy time of the pandemic, there's just so much change around us. I've really got a good way. Here's the thing, futurists, and I think of myself as a futurist, it's an academic science. It's a university sort of thing. But I'm not a university person. I'm not an overeducated person. I'm a pretty much a street person. I mean, I'm educated enough, but here's what I do is when I think about the future and I take action on it, I actually take money and I bet on what I think is going to happen. And if I get it right and I predict the future correctly, I make a lot of dough. And if not, not so much. So I am highly incentivized to be accurate in the way that I think about things. Unlike, a futurist. In fact, I'm on a Facebook group with other futurists. And I said, is like, how do you all know that you're doing a good job? And I said, here's how I know. I make a bet. And if I make a lot of money, I take my own advice. I act on the trends that I come up with. And if I notice things and then I bet on, going, wow, that's a smart thing. I'm going to take a bet on that. And I'll buy a company. I'll build a company. I'll do something related to whatever it is that I'm suggesting. And, I said this in this group of futurists. And you know what the response was? No. Crickets. Because, they're like, well, we just say stuff. We don't actually make bets about it, And I'm not talking about betting on the horse races or knowing what the stock price is going to be tomorrow.
Right.
I'm talking about trends, and you never can control timing, in those things. But that's kind of how I think.
So about a year ago, I was wishing everyone, and I apologize for that, a happy new year. And we were looking at having the greatest year ever. And we all know what happened. So now, what do you see? What are the trends that we should be aware of coming into 2021?
Well, so we're talking now about the meetings business. We're not talking about the whole economy. We're not talking about the states.
Well, if you don't mind, sorry for interrupting, Joel, but because of your experience, for one, and for two, because I believe we should first take the big picture before zooming in. I'd love you to talk about the economy in general and then what it would mean for our industry.
Okay. Well, I have a mastermind group of hedge fund managers. I advise, these are people who raise money and then they go buy assets, because that's been the business I've been in for many years. So what I've been telling these particular people is that assets are going on sale in 2021. Because business owners, real estate owners, hotel owners, landowners, they will not be able to continue to hold on for much longer. Many of them are going to run out of money and they're going to have to put their assets for sale, either voluntarily or involuntarily through a bankruptcy or some other kind of a foreclosure process or something else. So I've been advising fund managers to organize their cash and ready themselves to start buying, because assets are going on sale. Buy low, sell high. Prices are going down. They're going to start being able to buy low. Carnival Cruise Lines is a great example. They started out, their market cap, what the total value of their stock was about $50 billion. It's down to about $10 billion now. They're off about 80%. They're burning through their cash at the rate of about $500 million a month. What's going to happen to that company? They're not going to disappear. Carnival's not going away. But what's going to happen is that Carnival and all their brands are probably going to end up being sold to another company. And it may not be a domestic company, by the way. It could be an international company is going to come in and they're going to say, look, the price that you're worth now is they go down, down, down. Let's say they get down to 5 billion or 4 billion or 3 billion. Somebody will come in when they're at 3 billion and say, look, we'll give you 5 billion. Because you're not getting any better, but we'll give you a little premium to make you feel good about it. And the stockholders are going to say yes. So they're going to take a bath, but the new company is going to get it at a great price. And they're not going to have all the burden of all the other things that come with it. So they're going to get in at a good price, and they're going to control these contracts at a good price.
So you're talking about cruise companies. You're talking about hotel.
All these
airlines
companies
as well.
Airline, it could happen to the airlines too. The airlines are sort of protected by the government because they're considered to be really important. No single hotel has that status. The cruise lines is vacation. It doesn't have that status, but the airline's really part of our national fabric. It's a little different, but bottom line is that everybody's suffering. The Carnival is just a good example of what might happen. It's going to happen to other kinds of companies. I'm seeing it all over Las Vegas. It's happening everywhere, and we really need to be careful about it. From the point of view of the states, the municipalities, the cities, the states, the governments, what people don't realize, the occupancy taxes, for example, at hotels, there's no occupancy, so there's no occupancy tax. All those taxes that go to cities and states are not happening. The payroll taxes, all the other things, the sales taxes, we're buying less stuff. All the taxes, the gasoline taxes, everything that we do is less. And so the cities are down in many cases by as much as 70 or 80%. The city of Anaheim, where Disneyland is closed. Closed. And the ripple effect of Disneyland being closed on the hotels, the motels, the restaurants, and all the ancillary industries that support that enormous economy is billions of dollars, and the cities are not getting taxes on those dollars. So I see a tremendous crisis on the horizon for municipalities, for cities, states, and other governments. And we can go down that path for a while, but there's a tremendous difficulty on the horizon. So as the longer this goes, the worse it gets. The federal government has done a relatively poor job of supporting the people who are hurting the most, which are mostly small business operators, because they have the least access to capital and they have the shallowest pockets. I mean, really, that's a big problem. But long and short is that trouble's on the horizon, which is good for some people and not good for other people. We'll get maybe a little more into that as we go.
Wow, that's straightforward talk. And that's why I always love listening to you when you're coming with no BS and with definitely ideas to think about. So is there any good news that we could be hoping for? And when is it going to happen? When are we going to see the whole situation improve?
Well, let's put it like this. Let's go back to the Carnival Cruise situation. I think that this whole thing is sort of like an economic cleansing. I think that we're going to end up way better off on the other side of this, because there are managements and there are companies that have gotten bloated over time. And this is just like survival of the fittest. It's just like this thing is happening where companies are going to get washed and cleaned and they're going to come out better on the other side. So whoever buys Carnival and all their brands are going to stay intact. They're just going to have a new owner that's going to have a much lower cost basis. It'll be more profitable. They'll have more money to reinvest. I believe it will end up better off than it started before, because the whole economic structure is going to change. But here's the thing. That's going to happen all over the place. There are going to be winners and there are going to be losers. And the people who are going to be winners, it's not going to be coincidental, luck of the draw, flip a coin, throw a dart. It's not going to be like that. The people who are winners are going to take specific actions. They're going to do things that are smart. They're going to protect themselves, and they're going to take some risk that they need to take. And they're probably not going to take these steps alone. They're going to do it in consult with some advisors, people that have been down the path, that know what they're doing. And this is a big part of where this is going. It's a complicated time. And because of that, people need advisors and consultants and just, they need insight more than ever. Mm-hmm. So, for some companies are going to do awesome, and they're going to do awesome because they're smart. And others are going to not do great, not because they're not smart, but maybe because they didn't take the right actions, because they got paralyzed with fear. There could be lots of reasons. But I think the other side of this pandemic is going to be the greatest time in American history. But getting to there is not going to be so easy.
I concur with you with that the people I'm coaching, what they're looking for first is clarity and having ideas of what are the action that they need to take first to be able to continue and be there. So in your experience, you're talking about action, you're talking about the winners. What do people in the meetings and even industry who want to be successful need to be doing in the next 6 months?
Well, let's think about that for a few minutes, and I didn't come with a prepared answer, but I'm just going to kind of think of this off the cuff. So what would they normally be doing? What would the normal thing that they would be doing be?
You mean meetings and even
yeah, what would those people be doing? Tell me what it is now, and then I'm going to be thinking through what it would be.
Okay, they're planning meetings. They have customer that are not doing any meetings for the moment. They're helping companies execute the strategy by using face-to-face meeting. And for the moment, those who are doing it online, they're looking at the hybrid meetings for the future. And there's also so much you can be doing if your customer are for the moment stopped.
Okay, so here's what comes to mind for me. And I don't know what they should be doing for the next 6 months, except for they should be planning for after 6 months, because the next 6 months is very unclear. The vaccine's coming, but we don't know when it's coming. Some people are going to get vaccinated. It's not going to be as fast as everybody says. It's not going to be as thorough as everybody says. We can't deliver 700 million doses to 350 million people, in 6 months. I mean, we just cannot do it that fast. I think it's going to take much more than a year to vaccinate most of our population, but that's separate. So what do people do after 6 months? Here's how I see this world, the meetings and event industry shaking out. And this is really bad news for hotels, not necessarily for the meeting and events professionals, but for the hotels, it's going to be very tough. So these hybrid events are here to stay. I mean, it's working. And companies are saying to themselves, gee, we saved a lot of money doing this. This really worked out pretty well. Maybe we don't need to have all these people go to meetings. Now, they definitely want to have their high-level people, their important people, their salespeople, their executive people going to meetings, getting together, learning, being motivated. But there's a lot of lower-level or middle-level people that probably don't need to go to these conferences. So let's say that half the people no longer need to go to conferences. The second thing that's going to happen, so now we're down to half. So it doesn't mean half as many meetings. It means meetings might be half as long or have half as many people there. The second thing that I think is going to happen is that companies are going to say, it worked out pretty well to have like this Zoom thing, not as a replacement, but sort of as an addition. So instead of having a 4-day live meeting, why don't we have 2 days of like 1 day before, then we'll meet, like first this month, we'll meet for 2 days before, and then we'll get together live in about a month. And then we'll have a debrief 1 day, maybe when it's over. And so not only are half the number of people going, but it might be half the number of days. Now, for the meetings business, that really doesn't affect the professionals very much. But for the hotels, it might be half as much food. It might be a quarter of the amount of food, or a quarter of the amount of sleeping rooms and a quarter of the amount of space. Because if there's half as many days for half as many people, that could end up being something like a quarter. And of course, nobody knows the precise numbers, but I can kind of see this happening. So for the meeting professionals, they need to embrace the hybrid concept. Maybe they need to be the ones that organize the Zoom meetings. Maybe they need to affiliate with these digital producers, people that produce events that are very good at this. I mean, just turning on a screen is no longer good enough. The bar has been raised, and maybe there needs to be a professional environment where it's done in a studio or something else, and the company outsources it. They're still going to need a quarterback, and those meeting professionals are the quarterback who coordinate these activities. So what they do in the next 6 months is plan for the rest of their career, and thinking that the rest of their career is going to be quite different from what it was a year or two ago. And it could be different because we have the before, during, and after. It could be different because there's going to be many less people at the events, because the hybrid events are going to stick around. I think that we're in for a lot of changes. And that's why I'm saying that some people are going to do so much better. And there are other people who just can't shake saying to themselves, well, it was so great the old way. I want the old way to come back. The old way isn't coming back because the cat's out of the bag. Pandora's out of the box. People have been exposed to this whole new way of doing things. And some people are going to think that's terrible news, and they're going to hate me for saying it, and they would wish I'd be quiet. But it's what the truth is. And you're better off to hear the truth and act on the truth than pretend that the truth does not exist.
On that note, I totally agree. That's what I call brutal compassion. My friend Greg Abstrait comes up with that term, said brutal compassion. Face the fact and also understand what is going on. So what are you doing, Joel, in those months? I think you're launching something new, but what are you doing to prepare for the after pandemic?
Well, I'll put it like this. We one of the things that we do, we have a group that puts together research reports, and we put together trend reports. So at the end of last year, we put together a trend report, 20 trends for 2020. And even though we couldn't predict the pandemic, no one could, we did very well at predicting the business trends that would affect the world, and we did very well. They have really sustained very well. And we've come up with a couple of new ones as we get ready to revise for 2021. And one of the things that we noticed is that businesses are starting to reject social media. There is an impending crisis in the social media world. And I'm not talking about the social dilemma movie that got people all upset about the psychology and all. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that companies, large companies, organize these incredible networks of people in their community Facebook pages. So they'll have 100,000 followers and they'll have all this stuff. And then they go make a post and less than 5% of the people see the post. And then they'll have to boost the post in order for more people to see it, but still never more than 25% of the people ever see it because they just don't. They're bombarded by this. And then if they write about a topic that's inappropriate or somehow offends the social media companies, they might get censored, or their account might get limited, or their account might get shut off altogether. And by the way, you can't download your contacts. And so what that means is that if they shut you off or limit your account, you're done. Your whole audience is gone. And then, by the way, there's another problem. And that problem is that there's always new platforms coming online because a lot of people were upset with Facebook. They did this new thing called Parler and WeMe or Momo or whatever it's called. And you can't keep track of all the new things that are happening. So your social media influence is continuously diminishing. So we looked at this as a trend. That's a trend. So what did we do? We eat our own dog food. And I stare at the trend and I say, okay, this is the trend. What can we do to solve this problem? What can we give companies? And here's what we came up with. And this is perfect for companies that have franchise and really more B2B companies, which is what we're talking about here, that have franchisees, dealers, distributors. We built a platform that would allow a company to go direct to the handheld device of everybody who's important to them without social media interference, without intermediation, without any friction, and would allow them to not only send all their rich media, if they produce videos, if they produce podcasts, but also ultimately allow them to make sales right through this platform. So it's a private network that a company would have that would go direct to the handhelds of their most important constituents. So that could be hotels going to the general managers. It could be big companies going to the dealerships or distributorships of their dealers. Lots of application for this, and it's in beta testing right now, ready to roll out here pretty quick.
That's awesome. And as I was saying in the introduction, nobody knows you actually have a twin brother, which allows you to do so many things at the same time, right? But nobody knows that.
Well, I do have a pretty substantial team of people that handle my stuff. I mean, I sit around and think of ideas and then fork them over to them. And, then I meet with my writers, I meet with my researchers, I meet with my designers, and I'm, keeping a lot of people going. So, that's it's kind of an advantage that we have. And I just have a lot of time to think and sit and hang out with guys like you.
I know. That's very reciprocal. I never come out of a meeting with you without a new idea and a new thought to think about, which is exactly what is going on right now. So I really appreciate that. One thing that I also admire with you is how you, coming from the CPA and financial world, decided to build a speaking business, and you develop webinars and seminars, and you're an amazing speaker. So you really prove that regardless of what you're doing in life, you can always find new opportunities. And so what would you say to somebody who has expertise in, regardless of which field that they have, and thinking of sharing it about webinars, seminars, speaking? What do you see the future for that?
Well, let's put it like this. Those things, in my mind, those are modalities. So speaking is a modality, podcast is a modality, whatever. These are all, they're just modalities. I look at the bigger picture, which is, what do you know that other people need to know or want to know or could learn from you? And most all of us know enough that we could teach a class or we could share with people information that we have. My little daughter is she's a first grade teacher. And, and I say to her, I say, you know what? I also am a teacher. Well, no, you don't have a teaching credential and you don't have like a class and you don't work in a district. And no, I don't. I teach adults. And actually, and I get paid a whole lot more than school teachers get paid, which maybe isn't fair, by the way. I'm not
at
saying
all.
that.
They should be paid much more. They building the entire
I
country.
believe that because they're doing the most important job of all. They're educating our children. But the way that I look at this is that I know some things. I've learned things in my career. I have insights, and I have a special perspective. I mean, I've been very fortunate to be in a world that very, very few people ever get to go, or the money world. It's a very complicated and very secret kind of world. And I just have a lot of insights, and I share the inside track on how that whole business works. And, but I think that most people have something to say. Now, how do they learn how to say it? That's a podcast or a discussion for a different day. But if you have something to say, you need to learn how to say it. You need to put it into the world because people need to hear from you. It could be a book. It could be a podcast interview like this. It could be a TV show. It could be a radio interview. It could be a speech on a stage, telephone webinar, seminar. That doesn't matter. Those are modalities. But what matters is that you have something to say, and you say it with impact, and it impacts people's lives. And you'd be surprised how much that helps people. And then you feel so good about helping other people. And I think that if we all help each other, that will go a really long way.
Fascinating. And you're also a board member of NSA, National Speaker Association.
Yes.
We've seen recently PCMA buying SEMA. Association rely a lot on live events for their budget. What do you think is going to happen in the association world in the next 12 months as well?
Well, I think that they're going to have to get better at delivering member value. I mean, they need, members can get value in other ways other than live events. They like live events. I love live events. I mean, it's fun. I've got so many friends and professional colleagues. I learn so much from interacting with these people. I share, I put out stuff, I receive stuff back. I mean, it's so valuable, but that doesn't mean that there isn't ways that an organization can contribute without having that situation. Number one is they can create community group inside their community. I'm involved in a couple of things, and we meet every single week. Every single week we get on a Zoom call, and is it the best? It's not the best, but is it better than nothing? It's much better than nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's really important. So, that's something that they can do. They don't have to even charge extra for it. They can just facilitate it and let it happen. They can have some of their members run those meetings, but giving people some place to connect is very important. They can deliver member value through knowledge management. They can deliver member value through community connection. And that's what our new platform is. This whole digital platform is about connecting people together and putting them, on the same page to make sure that your most important content gets to your most important people. And that's what these associations need to do, is they need to make sure that they're communicating, they're helping. They need to stay in touch with what these people are feeling, what their problem is. And what's their problem? Their problem is that they're many of them are really in a state of panic, and they're paralyzed with fear. They don't know what to do next. Mm-hmm. And they really need some help. And maybe they need to bring more experts onto webinars and telephone seminars. And they probably need to bring people from outside their industries so that they get some perspective, because otherwise you have a very incestuous type of thing. And that's the problem with a lot of organizations, is that everybody has the exact same perspective. They may have different opinions about it, but they're all kind of, sharing the bowl of cereal together. And it's just, they're all kind of in the same pool. That's maybe not a great thing.
I totally agree. Absolutely. What are the industries you think are going to thrive in the future?
Well, service industries. I mean, listen, home improvement has done extremely well because people are home looking at their houses and they're not happy with them. So they have spent a lot of money on home improvement. I think newer industries, technology is going to continue to do well. Streaming is going to continue to do well. Content production is going to continue to do well. And I think that this pandemic has been an excuse for throwing out a lot of old stuff that we just don't need anymore. We've kind of come to realize that a lot of our beliefs, like working remotely, doesn't work. Well, I wouldn't say it works everywhere, But if you have mature people, and that's the key, is that it's got to be mature people that don't need to be babysat. If you have mature people, those people can work remotely and be very, very productive, and they can be happy. Now, are they going to want to work remotely every minute of the day for 7 days a week? No, they're not going to want to. They may want to come into an office 2 or 3 days a week. But what does that mean? That means that a company can have half as much office space. So what's going to happen to all that extra office space? Well, maybe it converts into residential apartments. I mean, they're going to have to do something different. We're going to have to be creative. So people who are creative, that's why the service industries, the architects, the engineers, all these people are going to do well, because it's going to require new thinking, conversion, and it's tiring to think. Thinking is tiring. Some people, they're not in the business of thinking, but we all need to be in the business of thinking. We all need to think, and we have to really ask hard questions. And if your company is not good at asking hard questions, then get somebody in there that can ask you a few hard questions. And a hard question, by the way, is not a mathematical formula that you learn at Harvard. A hard question is a simple question that makes you think, like, what are we going to do next? That's a hard question for a lot of people. What are the implications? And we have a whole formula called SWIT. So what's the impact of that? And then whatever the answer is, you ask the question again, SWIT. So what's the impact of that? And it takes us down this path, and it helps us predict the future. And it's remarkably accurate. And we put it 3 or 4 people in a room, 10 people in a room, and it's remarkable what kind of a picture we can draw of the future. And I will tell you, it is pretty darn accurate. And when I make one of those pictures, I usually open my checkbook and get ready to make a bet.
So what is the major bet you have right now?
Well, I would say that it's on this on the communication platform, because I really think that the social media rebellion is on our doorstep. I think companies are really starting to understand that they've been outsmarted by the social media giants, and they've built these communities, and then they don't have access to these communities the way they want. Yeah. Other companies can come in and advertise to their community, just all these problems. They've really kind of been duped into what happens. Now, I'm not saying abandon social media. What I'm saying is social media is great for procurement of leads. It's not great for communication with those same people
and engagement.
It's right. It's not good for those things. There's kind of a false sense that there is, but because of the way they throttle the posts, and because we don't really know what the algorithm does, and it's so top secret, there's no way for us to really understand it. For all those reasons, big companies are really looking at this saying, what are we doing? And let me promise you, if the CEO understood all the dangers that there were, and most of the CEOs of the big companies don't understand it, that person would be quite upset. And they count on their marketing departments to keep an eye on these problems for them. And I'm telling you, unfortunately, most of these marketing departments really are not aware of the problems either, which means they're not really doing a great job of managing what needs to be managed.
Joel, that has been fascinating listening to you today. As usual, I would say that for me, it's not a surprise. I'm really glad that you have taken the time to share those ideas. Very controversial for sure for some of them, but I would say the not the silver lining, but the common point with all of this, it makes people think. And from the moment you think, then you can start planning and do things differently in the future. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Well, listen, Eric, thank you very much. And I would just tell you, by the way, that I don't think they're that controversial, because any one of them, I would take out my checkbook and make a bet. So to me, I have a feeling that they're a lot closer. People may not like them,
right?
But I don't think that they're that far from accurate.
That's a very good point. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Joel, for joining me today. I'm always fascinated by the thought process you have, the ideas you're sharing. It makes me think, and I'm sure this is the case for everybody who's been listening today. If you want to join our Facebook group where we're talking about the business of meetings, simply go to www.eventbusinessformula.com/group. And please reach out to me on LinkedIn so that we can be connected. Thank you.